Hello, I'm Mel and welcome to my channel Knit Stitch Grow. Today I'm going to do a knit episode about everything that I knit in 2025, and that's because I looked back at when I did my last knit episode, and it was kind of early last year, so there's quite a few things that I haven't shown you since then, so I thought I'd use this opportunity to show you the things that I made in 2025, and then going forward I can then show you my new makes, my works in progress, and just generally things that I've got planned. So I hope you'll find that interesting. So what did I make in 2025? A few things. And what I'll do is I just want to keep this video fairly short, but just to kind of tell you about what I've made. So I'll just do them in order of when I finish them. So the first thing I finished was a pair of Rye Light socks, and that's a pattern by Tin Can Knits. And here they are. So two lovely big warm socks. They have a lovely guard. I'd mentioned these as a work in progress, a whip, in my last video, but they're now finished. These are knit in a Woolly Mammoth Hearth sock yarn, naturally dyed, 100% wool. So I made these a little bit longer and a little bit wider than I needed them to be, so that once they had been washed a few times and had shrunk and felted, then they would fit. These are still a little bit big for me, I have to say. They're still quite loose. I am not someone who likes negative ease socks, and by that I mean if you have negative ease, then you make something smaller than you need it to be so that it kind of hugs your body. I don't like my socks to have negative ease. I like them to either fit as they are or be a little bit bigger than they need to be, just because I always find that my toe pokes through like the front of the sock, and then I get a hole in my toe. So I always tend to make, if I'm going to make anything bigger, I tend to make the toe area a little bit longer than I actually need it to be, so that, and I find that stops holes appearing in the toes of my socks. After I made these socks, what happened is, you can see here now, this was a recent development. So I'd been wearing them quite happily for about 6 months, and then I think I just snagged these. I must have just snagged them on something, and now I have a big hole in the heel. So that's probably me just like wearing these around the house without slippers on, rather than a problem with the yarn. But I do need to fix that hole. But these are super cozy, super warm, and I've been wearing them for quite a long time now. I just need to fix that heel. So after I knitted those socks, I had about 18 grams of the mulberry yarn left over. And because I really enjoyed knitting the pattern is the Rye Light socks by Tin Can Knits, and it's a free pattern on the website. Would totally recommend Tin Can Knits. Have recommended them before. They do amazingly detailed patterns, and they do a lot of patterns that are focused on beginners. So definitely a place to look if you're looking for well-written, detailed, beginner-friendly patterns. I enjoyed knitting the Rye Light, so I made another pair, exactly the same, but this time you'll notice that they are striped, and that's so that I could use up the remaining 18 grams of that mulberry yarn, and I striped them with a Knitting Goddess sock yarn in the colourway Geranium. So in order to use up all of the remaining mulberry yarn and then all of the geranium yarn, I striped them split both balls of yarn that I had remaining into two, and then just used it up as much as I could. So the sock part, like the bit that covers your leg, is a little bit shorter than the previous version I showed you, and that's just because that was to make sure that I used all of the yarn and didn't really have any left over. So that was my second pair, and I love these. I think just having the mixture of the slightly more kind of pinky geranium coloured yarn with the brown, I think really cheers it up a bit, and it just reminds me of toffos, strawberry toffos. Did anybody used to eat those back in the 80s? Strawberry toffos were my favourite, and this just the colours just remind me of strawberry toffos. So that was my second pair of Rye Light socks by Tin Can Knits. Then the third thing that I finished was the jumper that I'm making, and this is another Tin Can Knits pattern. This is the Love Note sweater, and hopefully you can, I'll stand up, but there's a beautiful lace pattern all through the yoke, around the front and the back, and I love it. This is one that I've made before. I have another version in a really bright yellow yarn, and I made that, I think I made that in 2020. I'd have to check that, but anyway, I have another version. It's in a bright yellow, and so this one I made for kind of more autumn winter time, because it's a beautiful purple. The yarn I used to make this jumper in is this beautiful variegated DK yarn, which I bought at the Woolly Good Gathering in 2024, which was a new yarn festival at the time in Edinburgh, and this is from Ripples Craft, and the colourway is called The Day Monet Visited the Dye Shed, and it's just beautiful. I mean, I'm hoping that it's picking up the colours, but there's purples and blues and pinks in there, and it's absolutely gorgeous. So it's made with that, and because in my first Love Note that I made, I got gauge using the needles and everything that was suggested in the pattern. For this one, when I did a swatch, I wasn't quite getting gauge with the DK by itself. And then I remembered that in my deep stash, I had this beautiful purple lace weight yarn. And so it's this one here. It's a Fiddlesticks. I don't know if Fiddlesticks are actually going anymore. I don't think they are. But this is, as I say, this is deep stash. I mean, I bought this, oh goodness. I mean, I started knitting in 2006. So I think I possibly bought this in about 2008, 2010 maybe, and it was the colour that attracted me to it. And at the time, I wasn't knitting really very much in lace weight, and I don't now either. So I don't know why I bought it. It was one of those kind of early purchases where you're not quite sure what you're going to be knitting with going forward, and I just love the colour. I just thought it was beautiful, and this is 100% silk, so hopefully you can see the shine that's on that as well. So holding the silk and this together gives this beautifully drapey but absolutely beautiful colour of yarn, and I'm really happy with the way that it turned out. So yeah, I mean, that's been worn a lot, definitely in kind of autumn winter time of 2025. that has been worn a lot, and it's definitely going to have a lot of longevity in my wardrobe. I just love it. I am not, as I mentioned when I was talking about the lace yarn, I am not a lace knitter. I've tried it and it's not my jam. It's also not quite my aesthetic. Like I like the look of it and I like it on other people, but for me, I don't think lace is really my aesthetic. But for some reason, this is just enough lace without it being too much. And so that's why I have another version of it, but in kind of more autumnal colours. So I'm really pleased with this. Oh yeah, I was going to mention, so I mentioned that I bought this yarn at the Woolly Good Gathering in 2024. When I started knitting on it, I realised that I wasn't going to have enough yarn. So I went back to Woolly Good Gathering in 2025, and luckily Ripples Craft were vendors at the festival in 2025 as well, and they were still carrying this yarn. I spoke to the lady who owned Ripples Craft and she was like, oh yeah, we were wondering whether or not to actually bring that one to the festival. And I was like, oh well, I'm glad you did, because I just needed one more skein. So thankfully, I mean, she did say it was one of their best sellers. So thankfully and luckily for me, they decided to bring it with them to the festival in 2025 as well, and I managed to get another skein. Now I know some people, you know, if you get, because this is hand-dyed yarn, and I know that some people kind of worry about the dye lots being different, especially with hand-dyed yarn. It is a thing, and I've been caught out with it before, but I think I just had either a sleeve to go or half a sleeve to go, so I wasn't that worried about the colour discrepancy, especially as I was holding it together with this lace weight yarn. And I don't think you can tell that I've used another I've used a different dye lot. I don't think you can tell, so I got away with that. I think just because the yarn is so variegated as well. But yeah, so I was very thankful that Ripples Craft brought this yarn with them to their to the Woolly Good Gathering in 2025. So my next make was the Csilla hat by Ailbiona McLaughlin, and I'll put it on for you. So apparently Csilla is a Hungarian lady's name. I think I've remembered that correctly. And I've been hearing about Ailbiona McLaughlin's patterns through Woolly Mammoth. She's a big proponent of Ailbiona McLaughlin's patterns. But this hat, it was the stitch pattern on this hat that drew me to it. And it looks complicated, but it's not. It's the same stitch pattern all the way through. So once you get the hang of it, it's not hard at all. And this is a really comfy, cozy, it has a double brim. So you make the brim longer than you need it so that you can fold it up to keep your ears warm. And this has been super warm and super cozy, especially in the autumn and winter. The yarn is old stash as well. It was a John Arbon Knit by Numbers that I got from the original Edinburgh Yarn Festival, probably like back in 2018, 2017, 2018. And I think I'd bought 2 skeins and I had a skein left. So I fancied having a pink hat to kind of, you know, a bit of dopamine dressing for the autumn winter. So I tried this, got gauge, and then made the hat, and I love it. It's super cozy. So the next thing I want to talk about is a mend rather than a new make, and it's this sock. This was a sock I made back in 2020, I think. Yeah, let's say 2020. and it's the Flexor sock, which is a pattern by Claire Devine that was in her sock book that I think I've spoken about before on this channel. But when I knit it, this was kind of an early sock that I knitted, and I knitted it so that it would be tight on my foot. And if I have a sock which has negative ease, I find that my toes go through them really quickly. So this is eventually what happened to this. The toe had a hole in it, and also it was an afterthought heel, and the heel had started to completely like disintegrate basically. This is a lovely yarn from the Knitting Goddess, which is kind of like a rainbow on a dark day. It's not called that, but that's the gist of it. It's something, it's kind of like a rainbow on a gloomy day is the gist. So anyway, I started to get a hole in this, and I thought, okay, how am I going to fix this? So I just put my needles into the sock at the point where just before you would do the decreases for the toe, ripped it back, and then just knit a new toe. And then for the heel, same thing, took the afterthought heel out, already had my needles in picking up the stitches, and then sewed in a new heel. Now luckily I had, is this the same? Yeah, I think luckily I had this yarn left, so I could knit a new heel and have it still match the cuff. But I mean, I don't mind too much with my socks if they have matching cuffs and matching heels. And, you know, if I can mend it so that I can get more use out of it, then that's absolutely great. So yeah, I've only got one because I couldn't find the other one. I don't know where it's gone. So, but anyway, you get the gist. I've got a new heel and have lengthened the toe area so that I can keep wearing these because I love them. So the last thing that I want to show you are these fingerless gloves, and they are made out of a very cool yarn. I think they call it a zip yarn because you get these zips of colour going through the main fabric. Now, I'd made a Rituals pullover by Hoki Locatelli back in 2021, and I had about a skein of yarn left, and so I thought I'd make some fingerless gloves. So this is this is a very old pattern called Fetching from Knitty.com. Does anybody remember Knitty.com before the days of YouTube and online knitting? It's still going though, apparently. I've just looked it up, but I haven't looked at the website for a long time because now we've obviously got a whole load more resources than we did back at the start of the 2000s. But yeah, this was a fingerless glove pattern called Fetching, and it has a beautiful, you probably won't be able to see it on camera, but it has a lovely cabled cuff, and then it has a rib, and then it has cables on the cuff again. Now, there was another pattern at the time called Knucks, K-N-U-C-K-S, like knuckles, which was a fingerless glove that had like the little mini fingers for each finger, and I was going to do a mashup of the two, but this was a whip that probably I'd started in like 2022, and then I think I'd got up to about here because I was still thinking about adding fingers for each fingers for each finger. covers for each finger on here. But when I found them again in 2025, I was just like, no, let's just do the original pattern, just do a little covering and then bind it off. So that's what I did. I'm mentioning bind offs. The Knitty Stew, who has a great YouTube channel, she's taking a break in 2026. She made an announcement on her channel at the end of 2025. But there's so much good content on the Knitty Stew YouTube channel. Please go and have a look if you're not familiar with her. She's a Canadian stewardess. So it's really interesting because she kind of takes you along to all of the places that she flies to, has a look at their local yarn outlets, but also talks about the things that she makes. Anyway, I digress, but she had mentioned a new bind off to me, which was called the Higher Grandma bind off. And because this was such a small circumference, I thought, oh, I'll give that a go and see whether I like it. And I actually really like it. Super stretchy bind off. And it seems like a little bit of a faff to start off with, but actually it's not once you get into the swing of things. It's kind of like when you're grafting something together, you know, you have to put the needle in and out and in and out and purl and whatever. But once you get into a rhythm with it, it's actually a really good bind off. So I will definitely be using that going forward. So they are those. Actually, what I'll mention, that you might notice that this is the same yarn, but the pattern is showing up differently on each glove. And I love that. But you might wonder what the actual yarn looks like in order to give that effect. And I do still have, this is kind of like the never-ending ball of yarn, but this is how it looks. You have, well, that's all blue. You have blue, and then you'll have, oh, a pop of rainbow, and then blue, 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 blue. Oh, we might not get, and then you'll just get, eventually you'll just get another, oh, there we go, another pop of rainbow. So that's how the yarn looks, and then that's how it comes out, which is, I think is pretty cool. But yeah, this yarn just keeps, it's the yarn that keeps on giving. I've made a whole jumper out of it, and I've made these wrist warmers, and I've still got a hefty amount left. So that was a good purchase. I don't think I told you who this yarn was made by, did I? This is the Wool Kitchen. And again, this was a purchase at Edinburgh Yarn Festival back in, I don't know, maybe 2017, 2018. And this colourway is called Cosmic Girl Dark. So that is who that's from. So I hope you've enjoyed my rundown of everything that I finished knitting in 2025. What I'm hoping to do with the channel going forward is do more of a monthly catch up. So whether or not I've kind of actually finished anything, I want to just get into a habit of telling you what, you know, where I am with my knitting, what I've got on the needles, what my plans are. And then when I do eventually finish something, you know, I can obviously show the finished objects as well, but I'd like to get more into a habit of doing more regular updates, but not necessarily having loads of things finished. I don't want to get into this trap of feeling like I have to have things finished in order to put something out on the channel, because that's kind of how I felt before, and then ultimately that doesn't it doesn't motivate me to kind of put anything up on the channel. So I want to try a different tact this year, both with the knitting and with the sewing episodes, and just, you know, give you all a monthly update and show you what I'm up to. So I hope that sounds good. hope that sounds something you'd be interested in watching. And yeah, hopefully I'll see you again soon. Cheers. Bye.